And I am back. Ladies and gentlemen, it is January 7th of 2025. Today is the first Voice of the Broken of 2025. I don't think I've recorded one of these since November. I have no idea what episode we're doing today. I didn't even bother to look. I figured I have like an hour to kill. I'm going to sit down, bang out some emails, maybe give some advice and go. Couple things that I want to touch on before I get into that is that my book is live. You can find it on Amazon. There will be a link to it in the description of this video if you guys are interested in reading my book. It's in all of the link trees that we have, so you can find that there. To Be Focused should be launched by the end of the week, which means Peaches and I with Mike and Katie are going to be taking on like one-on-one coaching clients. There are a few spots left in the men's group. There will also be a To Be Focused group that's a higher tier that's a lot more involved than what we've got going on with the men's group and the women's group. We are doing a whole lot of things moving forward. Peaches has a secret project that's going to be announced probably in February, and life is evolving. So I don't want to waste a whole lot of your time. I don't want to waste a whole lot of my time. I just want to let you know all of that, as well as my respiratory is not good since Vegas. I've been having a lot of cough. So if you hear me clear my throat and coughing, I apologize. I don't have a cough button over here, but I'm going to jump into this. This one is called Broken, but Piecing It Back Together. He says his name. I'm not going to say that because we try to keep these anonymous. He says, I have ADHD, so I apologize for skipping around. I'm a 40-year-old father of 4, 2 of which are special needs. My story is how my marriage of 19 years disintegrated. Okay. My wife and I started dating in my senior year of high school. I was 18. She was 15. While I was in college, I cheated on her, but I didn't tell her at that time. A few months into high school, I failed out and I moved back home with my mom. That timeline doesn't work because that means that when you were 19, she was a minor. And I understand that there are Romeo and Juliet laws that will allow that to transpire, but that is illegal. And I also would like to point out that like there's going to be a whole lot of people that find that offensive or don't find it offensive. You can feel however you want to feel about the dates and the age of that shit. But a 3-year age difference really isn't that big of a deal. People are going to make it that way. I'm just saying if it was 40 and 43, nobody'd say shit. But at 15 and 18, there's definitely some legalities happening there. Definitely some legalities happening. But you guys made it until you were for 19 years. You know, it's crazy. I don't know. Anyways, a few months later, I moved in with my boss from Burger King and her husband. I became, for lack of a better term, a live-in babysitter. During this time, my boss's husband became my best friend. Her husband got a promotion to a different state, and I moved with them to North Carolina. Holy shit. My wife and I broke up because of distance, but stayed friends. Okay. While in North Carolina, I got in contact with a girl I cheated on with in college. She moved to be with me, and shortly after, she got pregnant. We got engaged. Shortly after that, she wasn't happy living with my friends and wanted to move back home. I was given an ultimatum and I chose not to go, and as a result of that decision, I was never given real information about the child she left with. I've tried reaching out, but to no avail. So let's break this down for a minute because this is a big topic of my book. And yes, that's a shameless plug just to mention the fact that I'm an author. Now I'm proud of myself. Bro, you got somebody pregnant while you were a roommate to somebody else and expected them to want to live and have a child as a roommate with another couple. That's fucking weird. So from an outside perspective, you were a babysitter. It sounds like you weren't working while you were there. You moved with them so that you can continue helping them with their kids because you were living with your best friend. You got a girl to move in, knocked her up, and then got confused as to why she bounced. I'm looking at this situation and see a man who doesn't have any real future, doesn't have the ability to step away from the friends that he's living with. Why would anybody want to raise a child in that environment? That's a problem. And this is not a fuck you by any means to you. Like, women want more than to be a roommate to somebody. You know, if you're bringing a kid into the world, you want your kids to have their own space. It's a lot to think about, but again, shortly after actually, no, fuck that. Before I move on, any of you guys who are watching this, who are working a dead-end job, who are in your 20s that you don't know where to start, you don't know what you're doing with your career, you don't know what to do with your life, and you're just like getting by the skin of your teeth, as they say. That's not a life to live. You need to be looking into things like trades and doing something that's going to level your life up. And you really need to be thinking about the future. I know a lot of people that live for today and today because tomorrow's not promised. And why save my money? Because I don't want to die 10 years from now and have $1 million. Well, if you're living skating by and you're only living for tomorrow, you don't have to worry about that because you'll never have $1 million. You need to focus, get your fucking life in order and start living with intent. I wouldn't want to bring a child into the world if I couldn't afford to take care of them. If I couldn't afford to make sure that their needs were met, or that if they had a doctor appointment, I could get them to the doctor appointment. Like, that's just, I don't know. Hindsight is a bitch, I guess. And it's easy for me to sit in this chair and say all that shit, knowing that I had a kid when I was broke as fuck. And I paid the price for it. This is one of those life lessons that I wish I would have had somebody that I loved and respected to tell me when I was doing the shit I was doing, like, hey, this is a bad idea. You shouldn't be having kids. I didn't. So anyways, again, shortly after I contacted my wife and I asked her to come be with me, she agreed. I was 20 at this time. She moved down and, redacted name, made me own up to what happened with my ex, and my wife's heart was broken, but forgave me. So you were 20. That means she was 17. So she, as a minor, moved away to another state to live with you. That seems, this age doesn't seem right. That's fucked up. Were you married at that point? Like, I don't know. Anyways, this goes on to say she forgave me. She got pregnant and again wanted to be with her family, and Redacted's wife was being unbearable to my wife. Well, you guys were living in somebody else's home. And this is the second time that you've had somebody living in their home that you've knocked somebody up. This time I went with her. Also, while living with Redacted, his wife did start taking care of her own kids, and I had gotten a job working for Rent-A-Center. My wife and I have always struggled financially, but we made do. We had our first child in 2005, 4 months after we got married. I was 21 and she was 18. Fucking timeline on this. For the most part, our marriage was happy. We had 5 rough years in the beginning, and after that, things started calming down. My wife is bisexual, and we had a few threesomes. So you guys, okay. They were fun, but ultimately became our downfall. Well, I mean, that's cheating, and I can see how jealousy and issues would arise from that, but let's continue. In 2007, we had our second child. Another in 2011. We were struggling financially as usual, but again, we were making do. We lived in a city that was ranked really high in national poverty list. Well, so far, the only jobs you've listed is Burger King and Rent-A-Center. 3 kids, that means that you don't really have a whole lot of anything to like move around. That's a lot of expenses to be on those types of jobs. So in 2017, we had finally fixed my credit and bought a house in another county. Good for you. It took, what, 12 years? What did she say? What did he say? 2005, they were married. 2017, yeah, so 12 years. She had attended college and got her bachelor's degree and had started working with special needs, and we were thriving. Love that. Then in 2018, we met my wife's girlfriend. She had worked in a classroom with our son and came to say hi to him. Her and my wife immediately became friends. Fast forward about a year, and the 3 of us had all become best friends. My wife and I have always been very flirty as part of our personality, and after a few drinks and some flirting, we are about to have another threesome. When you said girlfriend, did you mean like her friend that's a girl, or is this like you have allowed your wife to have a girlfriend? Because that's the question. I think that needs to be clarified. Oh, well, here we go. This one wasn't like the others. See, my wife's girlfriend, so she is a girlfriend, was a lesbian. Even though she has had sex with men in the past, I thought this was going to be one of those situations, and it clearly wasn't. After things had gotten started and she said she didn't want me involved, I left the room. My wife and her did their thing, and after my wife came back to me and we did ours, well, my wife and her girlfriend developed feelings for each other. I was okay with this because I come from a polyamorous background and I didn't see the issue. I didn't see it as an issue at first. I see this as an issue. Fuck that. I see this as a big issue. And I understand that there are people out there who are okay with this dynamic and this works for them, but that's a very rare thing for somebody to really make this work. And I understand it's becoming popular. Excuse me. It's becoming popular. It's becoming trendy. It's attempting to become a normal situation for people to have sex with other people. If you're in a relationship and you're in love with somebody, why would you want to share that? Maybe I'm a spoiled brat. I see my woman as my fucking woman. And under no circumstances am I sharing her with anyone. And if she wanted to have sex with somebody else, that's it. Like, that's all I need to know. Where our relationship is over at that point. I don't want her looking at anybody the way that she looks at me. I don't want her to potentially develop feelings. Why would I put myself in a position, or my wife in a position, where this great thing that we have is going to get destroyed because of lust? I have a whole lot of issues with this. This is not going to be a pleasant email read, guys. Then 3 months in, that's when problems started. I started feeling envious of the time my wife was spending with her or the other things they were doing. So I told my wife if she could have someone on the side, I wanted someone also. Tit for tat. She agreed that it was fair. I had a few girlfriends over the 4 years we were polyamorous, mostly because whenever my wife and I had a problem, I left my girlfriend at the time to prioritize my wife, and she did the same with her girlfriend. This became a pattern for 4 years. Then I met my last ex. She was amazing in almost every way. Due to a fucked up situation with her husband, she was separated and trying to get a divorce, and she moved in with my wife and I. During one of the breakups, my wife and I dated the same girlfriend, but due to my girlfriend's personality being so close to my own, my wife said it was too much and went back to her girlfriend. More problems arose when, on my wedding anniversary, I took my girlfriend and her son to the doctor because her son had the flu. Her son also lived with us. My wife felt like I chose my girlfriend over my wife. Cut that. That caused the first major irreparable rift. Okay. A month later, my wife and my girlfriend got into an argument, and that was it. I had to kick my girlfriend out to try to save my marriage. I only gave her a 4-day notice. Things spiraled with my wife after that. We were getting ready to file for divorce. We listed the house for sale and had a buyer lined up. During this time, I contacted my ex again, and we got back together. My wife and I both moved out of the house 2 weeks before closing and moved in with our girlfriends. Due to problems with getting the title in time for closing and a fight with her girlfriend, my wife wanted to cancel the sale and move back into our house, and I agreed. My wife and I were committed to trying to maintain a close friendship for the kids. I still loved my wife. It was 3 weeks into living with my girlfriend that my wife said she wanted to try to fix our marriage. I left my girlfriend the next day. This is a fucking mess. For the next 2 years, we would try and break up, only to try again and break up again. I was destroyed. We had our final breakup in May of this year. We are both friends and are cohabitating and co-parenting our children as friends. She's planning on moving back in with her girlfriend. I felt broken for the last 2 years. I was ready to give up on that life. I was just going through the motions for so long that nothing was worth the extra effort. I dumped everything I had into trying to keep my marriage together. I tried therapy for a while, but then lost insurance. And when I got it back, my therapist left the practice and I haven't gone back. I decided I needed to be my own therapist and work on my shit myself. I dug into therapy, TikTok deep down, and I found a few creators that said things that really helped. I've decided in the past few months of trying to work on myself that I needed to not rush back into a relationship. I fucking agree. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. I hate being alone. Well, there's a huge thing right there. That problem, I hate being alone, is one of those things that you really need to fucking work on. If you can't be happy by yourself, you're not going to be truly happy in a relationship. You're going to be overly needy. You're going to be your happiness is going to be dependent on the other person, right? If they're having a bad day, you're having a bad day. You're not going to be able to separate where they end and you start because you need them. When you're content being alone and you find joy in life by yourself, you won't need that shit anymore. I think that's why Peaches and I have it's part of the reason that we have the relationship we have, because when I've had enough and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go somewhere for a little while. I'll be back in an hour. She's like, okay, I love you. We kiss and I leave. Or if she's like, hey, I've had enough, I'm gonna go take a 3-hour bath. I'm like, okay, babe, enjoy your bath. Like, there's there's never any weird um feeling inadequate because of each other. All right, moving on. Mostly because I've always sought validation through others. It's just what I was just saying. And the things I think are much quieter when I'm with someone that shows me affection. And the things I think are much quieter when I'm with someone that shows me affection. I don't understand that. Maybe your mental is quieter. You and Peaches exemplify the type of relationship I want for myself in the future. Okay, so here's some just basic shit. Under no fucking circumstances are Peach and I having a third wheel in our marriage, period. Like, that's not even up for discussion. Under no circumstances would we ever step out of our marriage to have a relationship with another person. Like, everything that you've listed in this is not something that we would ever stand for. This is not what we believe a relationship is supposed to look like. I understand that other people do. You guys can be polyamorous. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do in your life. It's your life. But if you were going to try to compare what Peaches and I have to a life that you're currently living, just understand that the life that we live is nothing like this. So you have to realize that you're not going to get what we have living like that. Okay. This journey, also I would like to touch on some things. I understand that 19 years is a long time and this was your high school sweetheart and you guys have lived your entire life together. Sometimes that change is fucking necessary. We get into relationships and allow a whole lot of toxicity. We allow a whole lot of broken shit to happen, abuse, and we just keep going because this is what we've accepted our life to be. Not expect, but this is what we've accepted our life to be. We accept that there's going to be, in this case, infidelity. We accept that there's going to be screaming and yelling. We don't think that we deserve better or that we will have anything better, or we just really love our person and we're going to make this work. The reality is if you really were going to do those things and you were going to make it work, you would have done it by now. If you guys are still trying to find your footing to get back to a place that you once were, you can't do that. You'll never go back to where you were 10 years ago. Who you were 10 years ago doesn't fucking exist anymore. All of the life lessons, the trauma, the betrayal, everything that's happened in your life up until this point makes you who you are today. So if you're trying to get back to something, that's a problem in itself as well. All right. This journey has been a struggle. I struggle with being myself daily, from things like being motivated to work. I struggle with myself daily. I struggle with myself daily from things like being motivated to work. Being single is one of the hardest. There are some days when I would give up almost everything for a day of cuddles and binging a TV show. Motivation is garbage. Motivation is bullshit. Motivation is a fleeting feeling. Discipline matters. If you are somebody that only does things when you feel motivated, your life will never be anything more. It'll always be as mediocre as a motherfucker, because you'll be motivated for a little while and that motivation will go away and you don't have the discipline behind it to continue the consistency of life. You didn't say that you're not going to work. You said that there are days that you are unmotivated to go to work, and that there are days that you would like to just give up and have days of cuddles and binge a TV show. There are a lot of times that people do shit that they don't want to do. That's just normal life shit. I really think that you need to work on being alone for a while and try to figure out what's going on with your life, bro. Okay, moving on. Now for the light at the end of the tunnel. I've decided to work on myself, starting with being a better father. I'm trying to get to a better point of emotional self-regulation so that I am not always angry. And after 22 years, I'm going back to school to become a therapist. I want to focus on men's mental health and develop a new method of therapy. That's a hell of a statement. Okay. Well, I mean, let's see how that works out. Most men I know or talk to don't want to just sit in an office and talk about feelings. We feel the need to do something. I want to take people to the gym or axe throwing or a rage room, places where we can work our shit out in safe and productive ways. I have 4 years of schooling to complete, but I can guarantee you I'm going to be refining my ideas in that time. Thank you for reading this. You may post this as topics for discussion on either podcast if you want. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I don't. I think that what you're trying to do is very honorable to do men's health shit. I absolutely think that you need to find a therapist because you have some shit that you need to work through. And I know a lot of fucking therapists that have therapists. You're going to fucking need that. The last paragraph of this, wanting to take people to the gym or axe throwing, rage room or whatever, and working through therapeutic things, I don't see how that's going to work because you're distracted while it's happening. If you're throwing axes and there's a bunch of other people around, people are not going to open up and talk to you. It's hard enough for men to sit down and talk to other men that they admire or respect in an open conversation. Doing that around 15 people that they've never met before, this will be rough. I'm not saying that it can't be done. I'm saying that you got a whole lot of work ahead of you to figure out the ways to get people to start talking to you in that. I hope that everything that you've laid out makes sense. There's not a whole lot here that I can touch on. This was a lot of relationship shit and you feeling like you're not okay being alone. And that's a big fucking concern for me. But I think the rest of it is, the future. I think that if you really set your mind to getting that degree, you'll get it. I think that if you have a work ethic and don't give up on your work and your schoolwork, because now you've got 4 years of fucking school to do, dream big, go big. I fucking hope that it all works out for you. I definitely think that you need to stay single for a while. I think it'd be very hard for somebody going to school full time, working full time, and being a dad to somehow carve out time for a new person and develop a relationship and do all of that. And you said you have anger issues. So if you have anger issues, you need to go to therapy, bro. You yourself need to go to therapy. That anger management shit's a nightmare and it's not an easy thing. And for somebody that's done a lot of anger management, it made me angry. I would leave every fucking night pissed off. I felt like they would challenge. Anyways, I'm not getting into that. That was just a whole ass thing for me. Moving on to the next email. This one is called My Story, Voice of the Broken. This is only a 4-pager. We are 23 minutes in, so let's see how many of these we'll get done today. All right. I've had quite the rough life from beginning, and only the last couple of years have I been successful in actually turning things around. Start from the beginning. At 18 months old, my parents separated. I have animosity towards this. I only wish they'd handled it better. My father owned his own business, manufacturing cast stone fireplace mantles, and my mother was an accountant. My mother is a control freak and would play keep away with me from my father. Until I was 16 years old, there were constant court battles between them. It only ended after my mom moved away to Florida and I stayed with my dad. They wound up bankrupting each other through all of this. So this is the parents' bullshit trickling down onto the kid, but none of this had anything to do with you. Having animosity towards them separating at you with you being 18 months, this is not a you problem. I understand that there is issues with that. Like kids don't like their parents breaking up. They want to have both parents in the home, and I feel like they should. And that's not what I'm talking about right now. But them having the vindictive behavior towards each other and going back to court and fighting and her keeping them from you, she used you as a pawn to get at him. This is a them problem. And knowing that like you're an adult now, this is one of those things that I really fucking hope that you've learned to let go, especially because it happened. You're an adult now. You can't control the past. You can't go back and make things changed. The only thing that you can do is go, hey, they fucking hated each other. They took it out on each other. I don't want that. I do not want that in my life. And then make sure that you don't have a similar situation with whoever you end up with. Moving on, I had court-ordered therapy for all of my childhood. Through countless therapists, I learned not to open up to people. Everything I ever said wound up being twisted in the courtroom, and then I'd hear back from it from both parents. Pause right there. You need to understand that there is a difference between you going out and getting therapy and being court-ordered to talk to somebody. Court-ordered to talk to somebody means that everything that's being discussed is documented for the court system. If you go and talk to a psychiatrist, there is, or a psychoanalyst, psychotherapist, there is a doctor-patient privilege. And in order for them to even get into those records, there has to be a warrant involved. So you have to take that with a grain of sand, understand that you were court ordered to do things, and doing those, in most cases, it's not there to be. I don't want to say it's not in your best interest. I definitely know that the court system does what it does, and knowing that it was being given back to the courtroom and then going to the parents, I can see how it would make you want to internalize. When you open up your deepest, darkest secrets to somebody, thinking that you have somebody safe to talk to, and that's betrayed, that's more damaging than your parents breaking up when you were 18 months old. I definitely think that you should give therapy another try, though, but do it from your own volition and not from a court-ordered statement. Moving on, this made me feel like I was the problem and that I couldn't do anything right. That's not true. You were a kid. Your parents' bullshit had nothing to do with you. On top of this, I had 20 different living situations in 9 different schools all by the time I was 16. Started using and selling drugs to pay for my addiction. When I was 17, I dropped out of school and moved out. When I was what I thought was a party house, I quickly realized was a distribution house for the cartel. Wow. Duffel bags of assorted drugs became an everyday encounter, hefty bags of weed as well. At 18, while tripping on LSD, I had an epiphany that if I didn't get out, I would die in that house. I called my dad and he picked me up with no questions asked, as I was still extremely tripping very hard. I wasn't going to say that, but fuck it. As I was still tripping very hard, big shout out to him. I used the last of my money to bust myself across the country to stay with my mom, where I would have zero connections. Okay. I thrived for about 2 weeks until I found out about my former roommate from the trap house. He had been shot multiple times in our front yard. This had made me sad, but also made me feel that I made the right move to leave. I had nobody but my now retired mom and her husband. I went to work at a smoothie shop to fill my time, bought a 93 Ford Ranger, a fucking Ford Ranger, for $600. It cost me another $400 to license it. Within a month of having the truck, I decided to drive it home to Utah. I was lonely and miserable in Florida. I couldn't stand it despite the safety there. In 3 days, I drove the 2,300 miles and I began making new friends and stopped talking to the old ones. Bro, you made it across the country in a $1,000 vehicle, $600 truck. As I'm turning 19, I find out that these new friends are also on drugs, and I go back to these drugs with them. My closest friend at the time was shot twice in the head and miraculously survived after being revived multiple times. That was his catalyst to get clean, and he cut everyone off once he recovered in the hospital. This is they talk about this a lot with addiction. You can't go back to the environment that you were using in, because all of the external stimuli of people using and the habitual patterns of people getting high around you is going to make you use again. And you could be very headstrong on not using, and just being in those environments can be enough to trigger you to make you want to relapse. Moving on, although this saddened me, I can't blame him for doing what's best for him. I really hope that he's doing well. The next few years are a blur of selling and using drugs, but I did develop a large, supported, close-knit group of friends for the first time in my life. It all came crashing down when COVID hit. Everyone stopped hanging out and talking. The group broke off into little pieces. Most of us got sober. I didn't. My 2 closest friends became the only ones I'd use with and hang out with. We'd go through thousands of dollars of drugs a week, pushing ourselves into absolute limit. Our drugs of choice were, I'm not going to read those because of what we're doing. One night, one of those friends sends me videos of him snorting a pill 100 miles away. The next day, he didn't wake up. Turns out one of the pills that he gotten was laced with fentanyl. While this absolutely tore me apart, it also inspired me to get clean. I want to touch on this getting your group getting smaller and people getting sober. This reflects to what I said a minute ago about people who are still using drugs. If you are getting clean and you decide to step away, you realize that you're not going to have a whole lot in common with people who are using. Most of the time, that thing you have in common is the addiction. And as people get their life clean and get sober, they realize they can't fuck with you no more, and you didn't really have a whole lot in common anyway, so it's easier for them to separate. Moving on, I started going to NA. I started going to NA meetings. The one friend I had left began stealing from me and assaulted me many times over the years. It took some time, but I finally got sober. Good for you. I'm fucking love to hear that. I got my CDL and went over the road. While over the road, I got very suicidal. My best friend and my dad were the only connections to a world outside of trucking until I met my now fiance. After a year of very difficult relationships with her and suicidal ideation, while over the road, I had a night breaking down knowing I needed to change. I distanced myself from that friend and took all of my paid time off to get my crane license. Now I'm 26, engaged to the love of my life, a bonus parent to a 5-year-old boy. Last year, I bought my first house. I've got everything I could have ever dreamed of while I was using. It's incredible how things can turn around with some dedication and sobriety. Dude, I fucking love this. This is the turnaround. This is the fucking level up. Love this shit. Though I miss the friends I had, I wouldn't change a thing. The things that I've experienced are the reason I am the man that I am today. I'm preparing to start going back to therapy for the first time voluntarily. I know I still have a long way to go, but I want to face my past head on so that I can continue building my future. Sorry if this was all over the place, and it says waking up. I'm blind as fuck, guys. I'm just waking up and leaving for work soon. Thank you so much, Chris and Peaches. As the two of you inspire me daily basis to improve myself, you've given me so many tools to work through the things in many aspects of my life, and I hope you all have a wonderful time in Costa Rica. Well, thank you for that. Bro, kudos to you. As somebody who has done almost everything that you've listed in this email, it has done all of the drugs that you listed in this email, but has also lived that life. I have lost 3 of my very best friends. Ironically enough, 2 of them were to car accidents, and 1 was a drug overdose. I've had other people that I was close to that weren't my best friends, that were just people I was close to that I lost also along the way to overdose. When Oxycontins hit the street and people didn't understand the time release concept, everybody was breaking them in half and eating them, and it was killing them. And I'm really fucking glad that I got out of that entire situation before fentanyl became a thing, because I can see how that just fucking murks everyone that it comes in contact with. And for people who are in the game that have a tolerance to it and are able to handle that shit, when they get sober and go back to it, they normally go back to what they were using before, and their body can't handle it because that tolerance is gone and it kills them. So good for you. You have little eyes looking up at you now, bro. Like, you found a woman that's got a 5-year-old. You now have a young man walking in your footsteps, and he's going to mimic the things that you do in life. So not only do you have to live for you, you have to live for them now. And I fucking hope to God that you stay sober. And I really hope that your therapy works and you're able to work through some of that self-guilt, because the shit that happened to you when you were a kid wasn't because of you. You were a byproduct of other people's lives who didn't have their life together. I reconnected recently with a buddy of mine. He actually found the fucking podcast and popped into a live stream one day and was like, dude, I'm proud of you. And I was like, holy shit, is this? And I named him in the live stream. I'm not going to get into that right now, but he emailed, and I fucking found him on Facebook and gave him my phone number. We sent some text messages, and he's sober, and he's got a fucking good woman now. And he just got his LLC established, and he's doing licensing and businessing. And it's cool to see the people that I came up with get sober and reclaim their life, because now in our 40s, like we are way past our halfway mark. So we have a whole lot of fucking life to live in a very short amount of time to make up for all the partying and the bullshit that we did when we were younger, because we didn't maximize our life. So I get it, dude. I'm fucking glad that you're thriving. That's a beautiful thing. I love everything about that. I'm going to read one more and then I'm going to wrap up, because we're 35 minutes in. How long is this one? This one is 4 pages. I'm not going to try to make these hour-long episodes anymore either, guys. If this continues to be a thing and I'm reading these episodes and I'm doing this over and over again, I'm just going to try to get the content up. I may not even clip it. I may just get on TikTok and be like, hey guys, new episode's up, because making clips for me just reading people's story feels fucking weird. And I don't have a whole lot of insight because it's just me talking to myself at a camera. I don't have a co-host. Maybe I need to get a co-host. I don't know. This one's called My Story, Voice of the Broken. My wife and I have come across Yours and Peach's content through Reels. We love listening to you guys. We join the podcast and we pause and converse on the topics as we go. It's been great. Love that. Strong fucking start to your email, brother. I recently came across your Voice of the Broken and felt I need to tell you my story. When I was 6 years old, my father lost his struggle with depression and anxiety. He disappeared and ended up shooting himself. The days leading up to this were a bit tumultuous. My father was on a strict regimen of medication for severe asthma. If one of his meds got off of schedule, it messed with his head and his mood. This is what happened the night before he disappeared. His meds were off. He and my mom got into an argument, yelling at each other. I didn't like it, so I went in with a noisy toy and tried to get them to stop. At this point, my dad was already agitated. He grabbed me by the shirt, chucked me down the hall. I hit the wall and at the end of the hall and slid on the floor. My mom flipped out and told him to leave. He did. I'm going to pause for a minute. We really don't understand as little kids that it's not our duties to be peacekeepers. We want so very badly to prevent the people that we love from hurting. And with that, the pureness of a child and understanding what is right and wrong, because we have that ingrained in us very early on, we should never put our children in a position where they feel like they have to rescue us, especially at 6 years old. And that's what's happening here. Young man walks into the house, hears his parent, walks into the living room with a toy that's being loud, trying to get them to stop, trying to get their attention. He's trying to rescue his parents from what they're going through. And because our brain is not developed to a point where we have the ability to talk or be like, hey, why are you guys yelling at each other? We look for ways as a species to make it stop. And he was fucking abused because of it. This is a very real moment where, as an adult, you can look back on this and go, all I wanted to do was to make things right in the house. And in turn, I was punished. This is none of my business, guys. I'm not getting involved for the rest of your fucking life because of one incident. That could have been that one incident. Or it could be I wasn't strong enough to stop it. And he was able to throw me down the hall. So I need to start training. I need to start working out. I need to start running. I need to get strong. I need to be like the superheroes I read in comics so that when I'm an adult, nobody can bully me. And then that leads into a whole lot of other trauma scenes and mental illnesses, and could actually lead to, it could lead to a positive thing as well. But there's, it's just something to think about, just for you guys to process. He came back that night in a mush of emotions. He hugged me and told me he was sorry, and we all went to bed. The next day, we sent him off at the door, and we never saw him again. At least he came back and told you he loved you. I'm assuming he told you he loved you. It said he told me he was sorry. I hope to fucking God he told you I loved you. He went missing for a few days. Then my grandfather found his truck and body in the West Desert of Utah. You guys, this is the second email from Utah. I'm starting to think that I don't want to go there. You guys are making me not want to do the Utah thing. And that's gorgeous landscape and somewhere I really wanted to go. But Utah, you guys might be kind of fucked up out there. I remember receiving the news from my mother and grandmother that day, forever burnt in my mind. There is nothing like a 6-year-old finding out his hero and world is gone. My entire world came crashing down that day. For the next 5 years, I'd go through a series of losses of loved ones and those close to me. A great-grandfather, a grandfather, and a friend that died. I had gotten to the point that at age 9, I'd stopped getting close to people, especially in men, in fear that they would die. I have struggled my entire life on self-regulation. I had no idea how to process at all what I was feeling. I struggled in school, I got in fights, and I had a temper. That's because you didn't have the ability to talk to people. My mom did the best she could, but at the age of 30, and just losing her spouse to suicide, being left with 2 young kids, she too had no idea how to work things. I picked up some habits on emotional regulation, and they weren't great ones. My mom got stressed. She would project into my sister and I. There was a lot of yelling growing up. I unfortunately learned this behavior and have to work super hard to unlearn it. I still struggle with it from time to time. Let me tell you a story. This is recent. And I'm telling you guys this story because everybody likes to think that Peaches and I just fucking got it together and we're fucking nailing life. Peaches and I are a fucking mess because of our trauma and our childhoods and the shit that we go through. And though we are healed or healing, we are not healed, we are healing. We have new traumas and new things come up that fucking hit us like a ton of bricks and leaves us both just kind of staring at each other sometimes. Where did that come from? Why did you feel that way? Why did you just raise your voice in the rare occasion that she does? Why are you, and to be clear, she's not yelling at me. When her, this is a key trauma response for me with my wife. When I notice that she's starting to live in a panicked borderline situation, her volume control goes out the window and it goes in both directions. So that's normally a cue for me to pause and be like, to pry. I probe what's going on. Why are you feeling that way? Why'd you just raise your voice? I'm normally with, oh my God, I didn't realize I raised my voice. I'm so fucking sorry. Then there's some self-deprecation that happens and we, self-deprecating situations that happen. And we have to work through that. To the point, the other day I came out of the bedroom at 6 a.m. and our daughter this was during the winter break. Our daughter is wearing a latex glove. No idea where the fuck that came from. I know it's mine because I have boxes of latex gloves, but I can't think of a single place in the house where one is open, which means Peaches probably took one and uses it for her hair dye or whatever. But she's wearing a blue large latex glove, which on her little tiny hand looks enormous. And there are probably 15 paper towels all over the floor. She's ripping bounty off after bounty off after bounty off. And I raised my voice. What are you doing? I'm cleaning up a mess. Mommy told me to get a paper towel and clean up the mess. And I've worked through a lot of this and I'm very comfortable talking about it now. But in the moment, I was a fucking mess. I was getting mad over a 5-year-old cleaning up water with 15 paper towels. I have no idea how much a roll of paper towels cost. It's that insignificant to my life. But I was getting frustrated because she was wasting it and didn't get a regular towel and just wipe the water up, throw it in the laundry room. I started to raise my voice. We don't do that. You're wasting paper towels. And Peaches walked out of the kitchen. She's like, what are you doing? I was like, what do you mean, what am I doing? She's like, why are you raising your voice? And I was like, didn't really realize that I was doing that. What is happening right now? And we had a quick conversation. I had to go to a doctor appointment. I left. I came back and I pulled her aside and had a conversation with both my wife and our daughter. And, you can't explain to your 5-year-old the abuse that you went through because, it's not for them. When they're 15, 16, 25, 30, you can have those conversations, but a 5-year-old doesn't need to know that. They don't need that implemented into their brain or imprinted into their brain. They don't need to have any type of any of that. And she got a little bit of that because I had something hit me that I have never thought about, never worked through. And as I'm on my way to the doctor and back that hour and a half that I had of my life, I really got to sit down and think about what was going on and process my emotions, figure out where it came from, talk to Peaches on the phone. And here I am, 44 years old, big burly tattooed man with a 5-year-old in my lap, fighting back tears, trying to apologize for my behavior because she didn't deserve any of that. What in a absolute worst case scenario that I find acceptable would have been me picking up all of those paper towels, scooping them up, throwing them in the trash and be like, you only need one, and then walking away. I should have been like, why you got a glove on if you're cleaning water? I could have asked her questions to probe to find out what's going on in her world. Because at 5 years old, cleaning up the water is a game. It's fucking water. It's not red Kool-Aid. It wasn't milk in a carpet. It wasn't beer in a carpet. It wasn't fucking bong water in a carpet. It was water on tile and a little bit on wood. Who gives a shit? I don't give a shit. Looking back on it, I think it's funny that she was wearing that glove. I don't give a fuck that there was 15 paper towels there. That situation just triggered a moment in me. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't screaming. I'm not a screamer, but I did go from my normal conversation to dad voice. And that dad voice, when it happens, is enough for Peaches to normally check to see what's going on. That's normal shit. If Peaches starts to get elevated, I want to know what's going on. Why are you getting elevated? What happened? What did they do? Sometimes it's a lot of frustration going on that's making that go to the next thing. And it's cool to have a level-headed other parent that's not involved in any of it, that's not frustrated right now, to pull the kid aside and have a conversation about what's going on, to give the other parent a break. So this is situational awareness and being aware of what's happening in the house. I think that this is normal. But it's okay to recognize that we have a whole lot of shit to unlearn. Though I lived through what I lived through, I don't want any of that to ever come down on my kids. And in recognizing in that moment that I was getting elevated, she got some of that by proxy. She didn't deserve it. So don't be afraid to apologize to your kids. Don't be afraid to fucking sit down and be like, hey, I realize that that's not the best way to have handled that. And even if I was mad about her wasting paper towels, maybe I should show her how fucking absorbent a bounty is. Fuck, we've seen it enough on TV. Or maybe I should have gotten a towel and showed her how to clean the mess up with a towel. Or maybe I should have just sat down with her and had a conversation while she was cleaning. You know, there's a whole lot of things that could have been done better, but that's also hindsight. And I know that in the event that something else like that happens again, because I've dwelled on this for fucking weeks now, I won't handle it the way that I did last time. So just be aware that everyone has some shit that they got to unlearn. He then went on to say, I knew I was loved and saw the many sacrifices my mom made to give me and my sister the best life she could. My grandfather was a huge part of our lives. We spent lots of time with her as my mom worked. Grandmother. I don't know if I said grandfather. I was skimming. I learned how to work and the importance of a good work ethic, honesty, and respect for women. I grew to love my grandmother very much. And as a teen, that was where I went when my mom and I would butt heads. She was very wise and taught me to be reasonable, see other viewpoints, and find out where I was wrong. And pause for just a second. In my book, right? Because now I get to reference it and say in my book. Like that fucking means anything other than I sat down and typed some shit up. I talk about the 5 elements of being a man: the warrior, the husband, the father, the teacher, and the elder. And I don't believe that we have elders the way that we used to, unless you're in Native Americans still have elders in their communities. We don't have communities anymore, right? Like you might have like a church community, you might have like a bingo hall or some shit, but for the most part, we don't have big gatherings where elders are fucking admired and respected. And at 15 years old or 14 years old or however you were when you were doing this with your grandmother, she was your elder. And to get to that point, to call yourself an elder is a big deal. To be able to go and have a different perspective from somebody who's old in their age and wise in their years, you're not going to be the same person in your 40s that you were in your 20s. And if your mom was 30 something, she's not going to be the same person in her 50s. And eventually she's going to be that grandmother that's doing the exact same thing that your grandmother did for you with a whole lot of wisdom because she's fucked up and learned life shit. Patience being one of them. So, I think it's super dope that you had an elder at a young age. It's great to have a mentor. There's a whole lot of things that can be taught in those moments, especially in honest conversations. I miss that about society. Moving on, I lost her when I was 15. That was another difficult loss. I had great women in my life, but finding a great man and father figure proved to be difficult and was always let down. Maybe I had too high hopes. I'm going to blame societal norms for that. I understand that a lot of the men in your family died and people that came in didn't last long. But I think that if we normalized men being in the homes and made it taboo for people to fucking abandon their families and, brought back the art of the gentleman, I think that would change things quite a bit. This became a huge struggle from my teens to my mid-30s. I played into a huge identity crisis. I've struggled with for most of my life. There are just things a mom, no matter how hard she tries, can't teach you about becoming a man. Fucking speak on it. Hey, that's also in my book. I was faced with self-doubt, low self-esteem, becoming the nice guy, and got friend-zoned or cheated on. No confidence at all. All of this during a time that men are being degraded and torn apart left and right. It wasn't until last year that something clicked and things started to change. I still need a lot of work, but I'm starting to learn who I am. I started following a guy named Keaton Hoskins. I'm very familiar with Keaton. He said something one day in a personal development call that made it all click. He said, think of the time your inner child was at his darkest moment. Now think of all the things you needed most at that time. Now seek to become the person your inner child needs. That's who you need to become. I agree. I've heard this several times. That's actually something that Keaton's known for is letters to your younger self and trying to get over the hurdles of your childhood. Finally, after 35 years on this planet, I have direction of my potential and who I need to be. For so long, I've thirsted for a male figure as an example, yet it was there all along. Now, all of a sudden, mental health issues, addictions, identity crisis, and even thoughts of ending my own life seem to look different. There was now structure and a way to change. Although this isn't an overnight change, it was a huge realization. Now, before I move any further, you stated in this email that you never had anyone to show you what it was to be a man. And at 30 years old, you're trying to figure out how to be a man and do all of that. And you working with if you're working with Keaton, because you said on a live call with Keaton, I believe you said live call. It might have been a recording, I don't know, on a personal development call. Okay, so I'm assuming you were actually on a round table discussion with him or was watching a video. If you were working with Keaton, fucking dope, because that means you've got some sort of mentorship. But if you were going to try to become that man, what are you doing to learn to become that man? You don't wake up one day and become a teacher. You have to go through the phase of being a warrior and a husband and a father to be able to start teaching the things that the young men in your life need. And eventually, through being a teacher and the wisdom of seeing people, try the things that you've suggested and see how it works in their life and learning how to talk to and communicate and land your ideals on people, you then eventually get to become that elder. But that's a whole lot of life that happens. So how are you going to model you as a man without any type of real guidance into becoming that? And that's a good question for the people who are watching, especially if you didn't have a father in the home. He then goes on to say, I still have my triggers. I still have depression, anxiety, and still working through my addictions. But now I can see my purpose, my potential, and my identity. I am not my father, but he is a part of me, and I am working at being better than he was. Just like I hope my sons become better men than I am. There is so much more to things. My story goes so deep. We joke about our family has a curse. I literally struggle to enjoy when times are good because I feel like I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop. I get that. I fucking get that. I hope to learn how to overcome this one day. You will. And I'm going to tell you how to do it right now. When it comes to death, everyone dies. Nobody gets out of this alive. And when you understand that that's just part of the life experience, it adds value to your life. Knowing that I'm not going to be here today and tomorrow or whenever, like my shit is going to expire, it makes me enjoy traveling. It makes me enjoy farting with my wife. It makes me enjoy the kids asking my wife if she's a scaredy cat when we go through a mud puddle. It makes me enjoy looking at a butterfly. It makes me enjoy what this world is and the experience that I get to have here because it's not infinite. Like my time is fucking limited here. And if we got to live forever and everyone made it out of this unscathed, none of this would have meaning. It would be like going to work every day. Like, fuck that. So that's part one. Part two of this is understanding that every bad thing in your life is bad because that's the way you choose to perceive the situation. I understand that there are going to be things like rape and murder and all of the things that people want to throw into this argument because they're just looking for a way to negate the argument. And that's fine. If that's the way you want to live your life, you live your life like that. I don't understand why you're here if that's the case. Perception is reality. If you lose your job today, you can go, I can't fucking believe I got fired. Fuck my boss. My people that I worked with are pieces of shit. That company's going to go to hell. Fuck everything. Or you can go, I've been working there for 15 years. I've learned a whole lot about that industry. I'm not making as much money as I could. I have the ability to run my department. I was going to say company. Maybe you can. Company was really stuck in my brain there. So maybe you could run the fucking company. Let's go with that. So now you have an opportunity. Got a little bit of savings. I know how to do this job. I've done it really well. Maybe it's time to open my own business. Maybe it's time for me to go and find another company that's doing the exact same thing that this company was doing and let them know about my 15 years experience and how I can run that department, and then demand a higher wage because the wages being paid now compared to when I started 15 years ago don't align. And I'm willing to bet that I can negotiate more money at a higher level position, and I have to work as hard to make extra money, right? There's an opportunity that's to be had for me losing my job. And that's the difference in perspective. Fuck them. I can't believe I lost my job, or okay, I lost my job. What's next? There's got to be a silver lining here. There's got to be something that's going to give me a better outcome. How can I fucking make that be a thing? Those two things that I gave you, understanding that life is precious and enjoying it while you have it, and understanding that it is finite, that you will die one day, and understanding that we can turn everything into an opportunity, is how you will change all of that for you to not feel like the ball is going to drop. Anyways, thanks for letting me share my small view into our story, into my story. I hope to be able to dive deeper one day on your show. If not, no worries. Hopefully, just sharing my story will help others out there. Thank you. I kind of do want to talk to you, bro. I kind of do want to have a conversation with you. I don't know about on the podcast, but I do have questions. If you watch this episode, send me a follow-up email of what you're doing to become the man that you believe you needed as a child. That would be a huge conversation. When I get that email back in, I'll read it. And if it's something that I can justify sitting down with you for an hour and having a conversation, maybe we'll do a Zoom call and record the shit. With that being said, guys, we're right about an hour, probably about 45 minutes after I cut out all my coughing and the stupid shit that I said. And I'm going to edit this and try to get this up. I wonder if this will go up on January 7th. See you guys on the next one.